Speaking of a 30 to 40% success rate of sending me to sleep, Belal Muhammed versus Jack Della Maddalena is your main event. Welterweight title on the line. Interesting stat here, Tom. Both these men have not fought in a year. And now they're fighting for the title. Let me just say this to you right now. Jack Della Maddalena, Shavkat Rakhmonov's injured, so he can't fight. This fight was booked a few months ago now to sort of fill in the gap, when things didn't quite work out with Shavkat and Jack Della had to change the fight from the Leon Edwards fight. A couple months removed now. It kind of feels like Jack Della is a really undeserving title contender now, all things considered.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, this is just kind of out of left field in the current context which we have, and you gave a bit of background there on it. That was going to be my first question for you. Like, how legitimate is Della Maddalena's career to this stage? Does he warrant the big shot? Because, if we go back to when he's picked off of that card with Leon Edwards, who wants to stay fighting in the UK, fair enough, matched up with Sean Brady. If we go back to that moment, you'd say probably Leon is just ahead of him. Since then, Sean Brady is certainly ahead of him.
Yeah. And Ian Gary is ahead of him.
Had an incredible fight with Shavkat, and then obviously did a great job on Pratas. I know we're going to talk about that later on. So it takes a little while before you start talking about Jack Della Maddalena, and it's somewhere around the time that you talk about Kamaru Usman, and also, of course, his matchup, Joaquin Buckley. So,
oh boy.
Overall, this division's in a good place.
Yeah. So, okay. Go on. Hold on. What was that pregnant pause that you left there?
Well, then there's the caveat of Saturday, and it's a shame. It's a shame because this is the only thing holding this card together in any way, shape, or form. We discussed it before the fight. If I am browsing BBC West Asia and news of Belal Muhammed's victory by decision comes up, I am going to find it very difficult to get on this card. So,
yeah,
it's a very difficult position for this fight to be. But I was kind of expecting you two to come out here all guns blazing for Jack Della Maddalena. You've been a Jack Della fan since day one.
I am still a Jack Della fan. I know you're a bit of a Jack Della truther in that you don't fully buy into the hype, which is fine, which is absolutely fine.
You mentioned it. Can we explore that hype a little bit?
Okay, so
what are his kind of career-defining moments for you?
Well, let's look at his actual career. He started off his pro career with 2 defeats, right? And at that point, many a man would quit. But Jack Della instead has reeled off 17 wins in a row, 7 of which are in the UFC. So that's pretty impressive. He always had the win over Ange Lusa. So really, actually, he's got 8 wins in the UFC if we're including the Contender Series. Okay. Goes on a streak of first-round knockouts, or finishes, sorry, three knockouts and 1 submission in his debut year in the UFC. And
2022.
Then 2022, February 2023, he subs Randy Rude Boy Brown. And then in July 2023, people forget the order of events of this fight, but he fought Basil Hafez, who stepped in on a week's notice fight Jack Della. Jack Della had weighed in the week before for a fight against Sean Brady, who Sean Brady pulled out. They found a replacement. His replacement pulled out. And then a week later, Jack Della was on the fight night card, and he had to weigh in again. So, obviously drained from there. And, Basil Hafez, I quite like him as a fighter to watch. Juicy boy, I'll say that much. Coming from the regional scene straight into the pro. I don't think there was much drug testing going on there. And, Jack Della squeezes out a pretty ragged decision win. Then he fights Kevin Holland, gets a decision win. And then he fights Gilbert Burns.
You've kind of brushed over the Holland fight.
We can talk about the Holland fight if you want.
Tell me about it.
Kevin Holland, right? What is his kryptonite? It is big grapplers. What is Jack Della Maddalena? He is a striker. So, and he's shorter than Kevin Holland. So, obviously, it's going to be a different occasion. It sort of fits into Kevin Holland's wheelhouse a little bit more. People have this weird perception of that fight because it was a split decision.
Can I expand a bit?
Yeah.
Right.
It was a split decision win, of which I do not see any way that you could have won, that Kevin Holland won that fight. It was one of those for me.
It was a poor showing for Jack Della. It was.
I don't think it was.
I think he won the. Okay.
I don't think it was.
Well, let's put a bit of context on Kevin Holland, shall we? He has, of course, gone on to lose against another striker, Michael Venom Page. Comprehensive, absolutely taken to school by Venom Page.
But Venom Page is a unique.
A unique proposition, yeah. And when it comes to strikers, he's much like the discipline that Jack Della would primarily subscribe to. Like that's where he likes the fight to take place. Yeah.
But Jack Della's more of an upright boxer style striker, whereas Venom Page is a more bladed,
not the karate
style.
Sure. But it's fair to say that Kevin Holland's not had a stellar 3 or 4 years since his big year back in 2020. So it was a bad look, Joe. It was a bad look. It was a bad look.
Winning?
It's after the Basil Hafez fight, who, by the way, still doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Okay. It's a bad look, and then we come to Gilbert Burns, which surely, as a fan of Jack Della Maddalena, you'd say is his biggest win. I mean, it's
definitely.
His most. Any caveats on the condition of Gilbert Burns, if that where he is in his career, or the challenges he presented?
Gilbert Burns is definitely towards the twilight of his career, if not fully wedged into that part of his career. And again, that was another weird one that people scored entirely for Gilbert Burns until the third round, because I thought it was like 1-1 going into the third. I remember watching it and thinking like, oh, okay, close. We'll see how this third one goes, and then he gets to finish in the third. And
just about like it was on the line. My poor boy Gilbert was summoning.
But he
every
did it
little
though.
Bit he had left, but Gilbert is inches away from getting the takedown and winning that fight.
No, he's not. He literally he grappled. He was on his back. He was on his back. Jack Della gets out with like a Z sweep, which was pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie. And then he gets up, and then Gilbert immediately shoots for a takedown, naked takedown, and then Jack Della throws a knee up through the middle.
My poor look.
And then he threw a takedown with, by the way, Jack Della with his back to the entire cage. Like there was no cage wall near him. Gilbert was up against the cage, runs into a knee. Like it was poor fight IQ from Gilbert there, but it was an excellent finish.
Wow.
Like it was well timed.
Gilbert was clinging on. He was in a desperate state.
Yeah.
39 years old he'll be in July. 39 against a much younger man. Having taken big damage, obviously lost a close fight to Belal with one arm. Like Gilbert was in he was giving it every little last bit he had, and he nearly had enough for Jack Della. It was on a knife blade. Like it was definitive and it was a stoppage win, but it very nearly went the other way. So I don't know, Joe. I think the truth is written there. Like Jack Della really doesn't have. Yeah, Basil Hafez, Kevin Holland, and Gilbert Burns in his last 3 fights. 2 split decisions, and the other one was a knife edge from going the other way.
Yeah, but the split decisions.
2 Wikipedia pages from them. Massive loss streaks. A 39-year-old. Like Joe, it's not looking good for your boy here.
This is not the case of being my boy. I'm just looking at like what we're talking about here. Okay, well then should we go through Belal Muhammed's record there? Should we go through, where do you want to start? Do you want to go from the Leon Edwards eye poke?
I think actually it's better. I think it's better to start with a Leon Edwards fight, but not that one, because Joe, we got to come clean. We got to, in the words of Mixed Molly Whoppery, covering Michael Chandler, full ownership, total ownership.
Yes.
Because we got it really wrong with Belal Muhammed in his last fight.
Oh God, yeah.
We shot the dog. That was maybe worse than the Cyril Gane pick. And let's be real, Leon was the total package for us going into that fight. Yeah. Everything to reign for a little while, a real problem.
Yep.
He had unlocked the takedown defense. The gas tank was there. The fight IQ, the striking, timing, power, size, everything. And Belal, remember the name Muhammad, He wiped the floor with Leon in that last fight.
Yeah. It's really impressive.
A massive win. Really, really impressive. Where it's like, okay, we have underestimated Belal to this point somehow because he was on a huge streak of his own. You wanted to talk about also the win over Sean Brady, I believe.
Sean Brady. Well, you've already added the asterisk to the Gilbert Burns one, so which you
have glided past that.
Yeah. You've long been saying like, well, Belal, did he really beat Gilbert Burns? I remember you saying on the review because Gilbert had a broken arm. And by the way, I picked Belal to win that fight, if you remember correctly. And I've actually always been slightly a bit of a Belal fan. Like, I've always been a little bit like, I enjoy how much he annoys people. So I respect that, okay. But, we have to say that the Leon performance was excellent. The Gilbert win, people criticise him for not getting the finish in there. I think that the Gilbert fight and the Leon fight show what Belal Muhammed is, which is an incredibly hard worker that when he finds a game plan that works, he just entirely sticks to it. Every single time he got Leon up against the cage, he was in on the single and his head was on the outside. Every time.
Try that. Yeah.
Every time.
And if he could lock the hands, then he would complete the takedown.
Yeah, he would lock his hands, pull him away from the cage, getting up, and then have it so that Leon had not like super far away from the cage, but in the sense that he had so much further, he had to go round Belal to get to the cage to get back up. Because when Belal went for takedowns in that fight against Leon that weren't up against the cage, Leon was absolutely fine. It was just that basically Belal's whole game plan was just, I'm just going to harry you, get you up against the cage, get you moving. Your sort of guards that you throw, your sort of defensive striking position, I'm going to work underneath it with uppercuts. I'm going to be in and around you, making it difficult. And it was a really solid game plan. And it was the same thing with Gilbert Burns, where it was just like, I'm not going to engage in the grappling. I'm just going to occupy him with the same combo, which was literally just the Robert Whittaker 1-2 high kick, which obviously from Belal does not look as majestic as the Robert Whittaker version. Sean Brady, again, just press into him, set the pace. Luque.
I mean, how well has that win aged?
Oh, is it probably the best win on Belal's record right now of like his recent fights?
I mean, that's to discredit Leon Edwards, isn't it? We have to recognise what we were saying going into that fight. Now, obviously, Leon, in our estimation, in the estimation of the sport, have collapsed. So, given the context of how good we thought Leon was and the problems that we saw for Belal from their first fight, or albeit only 5 minutes, that has to be the biggest win.
But the thing is, though, I remember saying that about Brady going into the Belal fight, where I'm just like, this guy's massive, he's going to be a problem, whatever else. And I thought, like, wow, this guy's on a great trajectory. And if anything, that defeat to Belal has helped Brady a lot. There's two ways you can look at it. For me, I think the Edwards win is more impressive, but that Brady one has aged fantastically. But we have to there acknowledge that Jack Della Maddalena is a different sort of fighter to Leon Edwards. I know you're going to say it, but they're both strikers. Yes. Leon likes a slowish pace. He wants individual strikes. That's what he wants. Yep. Jack Della wants you moving into his strikes. Jack Della, by the way, is, I think one of his big issues that he'll have with Belal is that most of his best work as a striker tends to be when his feet are set. Like, he doesn't like moving and striking at the same time, which is actually kind of the whole MMA game plan is, can you strike and move at the same time? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's not many that are really good at it. So that might be a bit of a problem. And I think also another benefit for Jack Della is that I do think his striking's a lot better than Belal's. That's obvious. But another benefit for him is that he doesn't really throw a lot of kicks. Do you know what I mean? It's all in the hands. So I don't think he'll leave himself open in that sense. What I expect Belal to do is, like, I am going to harry and press Jack Della in this fight. I'm going to get him up against the cage. First 2 rounds, just going to work him up against the cage. Get myself between him and the cage as well. And use it to take him down. Like, that will be the Belal game plan here.
I mean, Jack Slack just covered Belal. He gave a breakdown going into this fight, and he highlighted the changes, the adaptations that he made from the first Leon fight to the second fight. And it was all about making Leon reset, making Leon find his range again, back up,
not
get
set his
so he can
feet.
throw that one. Yeah, exactly. And so Leon's constantly striving, usually on the back foot, to get back into the kind of range and position he wants, so he can plant and just those single quality strikes that he's so good at. And Belal, as part of that, has to be ready to take the odd shot in that space. And if he can maintain that pressure, that's what will start to tell and start to crack. And obviously that will open up the chances for those takedowns against the cage much in the same fashion that we saw against Leon. I mean, you have to imagine that for Jack Della. Let me frame it in this way. Isn't the scale of the challenge that he faces going into this fight greater than that which Belal faces?
Well, Jack Della's got the biggest mountains to overcome between these two.
Yeah, in adapting. Yes.
I actually don't know. I don't know if he will actually adapt any. Do you mean like his offensive game plan? I don't think Jack will change that much, to be honest.
No, I don't mean in that respect. I mean in overcoming the strength of the opponent.
Right.
Who has the greater threat? Now, you mentioned that Jack Della is a volume striker. If he is able to kind of plant his feet and throw combinations, he can
combination
big
puncher,
damage.
yeah.
So Belal will have to be ready to engage with that and accept that he might get hurt at points in the fight. And then you've got the challenge that Jack Della faces going in against Belal, having seen the pressure he can put on other fighters.
Yeah.
Who is going to be more worried about what they face in front of them on Saturday night?
I actually don't know, now that you framed it like that. I'm actually not entirely sure. I think Belal is more of a all-around opponent game planner, so maybe that's a natural state to be in, where he's thinking, what can I do to take away from my opponent? So maybe he would have that naturally, but I don't think there's a fear there of Jack Della. I think Belal thinks that if he can get Jack Della up against the cage, then that'll be the round done. Do you know what I mean? Like he thinks that. I think Jack Della is a little bit sneakier than that. I think it's interesting the team up with Craig Jones as well going into this. Craig Jones, obviously the great grappler, teaming up with Jack Della. Craig Jones being the guy who trained Volkanovski has trained with Volkanovski for a number of years, and has come up with a game plan to help mitigate against Islam Makhachev's grappling. So I think that will be interesting to see. I don't know. I really don't know.
Let me jump in and tell you what I think that I know. I think that I know that Jack Della Maddalena will remember that fight against Belal Muhammed and think, good Lord, that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. And there has to be an element like, what happens if that happens to me again, and against a superior challenge than Belal Muhammed.
Surely Gilbert Burns is the one to be worried, that would be sticking in his mind a lot more. Don't you think? Because the Belal Hafez one is under such strange circumstances. Do you know what I mean? I think the Gilbert Burns one, where it's just like you've had the camp, you've trained, and then you had those problems with that guy. But then it's Gilbert Burns though, who is, a supremely talented guy, but has obviously lost his physicality. Like he has lost a step.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's lost some athleticism, but he's still a physical presence, that's for sure. I think you also acknowledge, okay, I'm going to fight Gilbert Burns, super tough, obviously dangerous jiu-jitsu if it comes to that, has the takedown threat, loves to throw hands. I'm probably going to have some uncomfortable moments fighting Gilbert Burns, even at this age. Nobody looks at Gilbert Burns and says, "Oh, I'm just going to cut through him like butter." Look at what happened to Hamzat. So Gilbert just is gonna hurt you unless he's fighting on one arm like he was against Belal. Whereas you look at Belal Hafez and you can't get to his Wikipedia page. So
your fixation on the Wikipedia needs to be analysed.
No wiki wonders, Joe. That is an absolute banana skin out there. I don't know. I just think there's got to be that element, oh boy, that was horrible. And now something like that could happen.
But he pulled it off though. I remember the third round, he really poured it on Belal Hafez. He had an awkward first round against him, and in the third round, I think he almost finished him, didn't he? It was, it wasn't like he was struggling with him at the end.
Let's talk about that then. It's a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
As the fight goes deeper,
yeah,
how do you expect it to develop?
Well, this is the question, because obviously Belal like he just fell out from underneath himself against Leon in that 5th round. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he should have won that 5th round again, like, if he could have kept that up, but he just had nothing left. And I feel like Jack Della doesn't have, like, an overly exertive style. Does that make sense? Like, even in round 3 to round 1 doesn't look that much different. Obviously, we don't know what 4 and 5 has looked like so far with Jack Della. So we don't know in that sense, but I feel like his style is that where he's not overly exerting himself in the sense of, like, I'm going to push myself for a finish here. I'm going to, like, I'm going to create the opening. I'm going to wait for the opening to come. So I wonder if that will actually benefit him. And also having seen Belal, you know, wrestle Leon for all those rounds, particularly it was like, was it rounds 1, 3 and 4 that he won, wasn't it? And then rounds 2 and 5 went to Leon in that fight. It's like, so has he actually only got 3 rounds of wrestling in him? Could be a way of looking at it. And now that we know, obviously, that Jack Della can, later on in fights, even 3-round ones, still be there and cause problems, I wonder if that's what he's thinking about Jack Della, where he's like, I'm not going to rush to finish him in the first 1 or 2 rounds. I'm going to be there rounds 3 and 4 to try and get him out of there. I don't know. That's if I'm projecting, and I'm projecting a game plan. And also, let's acknowledge the fact that Belal Muhammed right now is 36 years old. You know, that 35 curse went
in July.
And that 35 curse, whatever you want to call it, or the only guys that have beaten that are Volkanovski and Tyron Woodley. You know, and one of Tyron Woodley's wins over 35 or 35 and over was against Damian Maia. So whoever won that fight was going to beat it. So whatever.
I'm glad you highlighted that, Joe, because I think that is where more of the intrigue lies here. Now, Belal, you think about the fight with Leon. The rounds he won, you're thinking about him getting his hands locked, dumping Leon down, just manhandling him. But that's not the full story of the fight, as you've already highlighted. He had to kind of take a bit of a round off, and then he was pretty finished by the end of that.
Yeah.
A year older, you've mentioned that already. And against
had
a guy
an injury.
Had
an injury, that's why I didn't fight Shavkat.
Doesn't throw a lot,
No.
So you would imagine that Jack Della's style does lend well into the later rounds. So then the question starts to become, well, can he ride out Belal in the first few rounds? How do those first round looks? Do we think that Belal will start off with? Will he spend time in Jack Della's guard in the early rounds?
Oh, what you mean? Take him down,
takedown, top control. Yeah. And will Jack be able to get up in those instances?
I think he can get up. I don't know. It just depends on where that happens. Because I always think that, again, it's an interesting one for me with Belal, that he never really goes into 2 fights in a row with the same game plan. Like, if you look at each fight, he does have a different approach in each one. So I wonder if there's going to be a preemptive thought in the Jack Della Maddalena camp of, like, what does he think he's going to see and what can we set up as a trap for that? But I don't know. I think it will be similar to the Leon one. I just expect a lot of clinch work up against the cage and just working from there. Maybe try and sap Jack Della with some energy and try and make it more of an even playing field later into the fight, because I don't really want to spoil anything here, but if I'm going to pick Belal Muhammed, I'm not picking a finish here. I do think this fight is going to be quite touch and go if it goes the distance. Like, it's not going to be... I don't expect a 5-round wipeout here from Belal.
So I think it's fair to say then, after considering these arguments, that actually, okay, it might not be narrative-wise the best fight, the hottest fight in the division.
Well, the narrative is...
But
does Islam get to move up?
Which I think we would love to see. I mean, we're going to come on to that, I think, a bit later on, and just how they're using Islam, and why are we not seeing him in these big matchups? Because he's there, he's ready to go, and he's a bit of a star in my view.
I love him.
So I would love to see him. I'd love to see him get the chance to go up. It would just be funny if it was against Jack Della Maddalena in his first title defense. That would be just kind of odd. I'm picking Makhachev, by the way, if that does happen.
Oh, interesting.
So what I was going to say, though, Joe, is more that like in terms of where they are in the division, their careers thus far, their profile in the sport, it's not the most compelling. But actually, when you look at the matchup itself, and you look at the kind of caveats that we've introduced through our discussion here, it's actually a very interesting fight and not easy to call at all. I would have these guys almost evens going in.
Yeah.
And I think you won't be ridiculed if you pick either man. However, the bookies, they do have Belal Muhammed as quite a strong favourite going
Which
into
is
the
fair
fight.
enough. Belal has more 5-round experience. He is the champ. He was very impressive against Leon. Go on.
Do you agree with the bookmakers?
Wait, hold on. Are you trying to get my pick from me? Is that what you're saying?
I am. Yeah. Unless there's something else you'd like to introduce, but I think
No, I do agree that Belal being the favourite makes sense. I'm not going to pick him. That's the difference. Like, I'm not going to put my money on Belal Muhammed. I'm going to pick Jack Della for this fight, and I've got him with a round 4 knockout against Belal Muhammed. It then expects Belal to get promptly cut the next day, so that will be happening. By the way, I actually
couldn't sell any pay-per-views.
Couldn't sell any
People
seats.
didn't want to watch
I'll
him
tell you
live.
that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's something that we should talk about. But no, I think.
Well, Joe,
do you know? Can I tell you my projection?
Him right out.
What's that? Sorry, say that again, Tom.
Well, they've stunk him right out. Look at the card they've put him in. Like, look at the context. First time in Canada in 10 years, you pick almost no Canadians. There's
no Canadian fighter to pick. They've put Saint Denis and Fiarot on there because they speak French. French Canadians don't care about that. Like, what are you talking about? There's no Canadian MMA star. There's not a Rory McDonald out there. They got Ayman Zahabi. Like, this is in a bad spot. It's not looking good in terms of the ticket sales, which you can look up online. Is it even half sold? Like, it looks really not great. Not great at all. Anyway, I've picked that. And here's my other prediction for this fight. This is going to be the fight people thought Duplessis-Strickland was going to be. I think this is actually going to be a bit of a blood and thunder back and forth. And I think it's going to ramp up nicely. My pick, JDM, knockout, round 4. Go for it, Tom.
Yeah, true to form, Joe. You haven't surprised me greatly with your pick, and I think it's reasonable, right? You certainly won't be ridiculed here. And I do think this could be a great fight. So there we go. We go. In the midst of this poor serving that we've been offered, could actually be a lot of fun. And as we've said, we've already kind of situated the fight in the context of the rankings and the divisions around it. It has big ramifications. It's an exciting fight. But I have not picked the exciting outcome. You just got to trust the record, trust the form of the guys going into it.
Yeah.
Jack Della Maddalena, for me, is bridging a much bigger gulf than is really being portrayed here. And I think he's got the tools that could do it, as have been discussed. But I've just got to trust. I've got to trust Belal to get it done with
fair enough.
decision victory.